Christopher Noyes? Similar town, similar amount of time. Call Christopher Noyes.
Thought I was going last.
6. Welcome to Legislative
Mr. Chair.
Administration.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, question. Representative? He was asking if he could go last. Is that possible?
We have these laid out the way we're going. Thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't hear you. Did you ask me that? No, I did not hear that. Sorry. Mr. Noyes?
Yes. So my name is Chris Noyes. I am residing in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. And I'm just here as one of the people to speak to the issue. I support the bill. Essentially, let me back up and say that it's my understanding that a resolution operates similar to a bill. If it were to pass the House, it would need to pass the Senate, and the governor would have to sign off on it in order for it to be binding. But at that point, it is binding, every bit is binding as a bill. So these claims that the resolution is meaningless or non-binding or just a virtue signal, I don't see any written evidence of that anywhere. So I disagree with that. So I do believe that it's worth trying to walk through the process just like a bill. The reason why it's better than a bill is because bills add on layers of statutes to the fundamental law. And that is exactly what has gotten us into the jam we're in now. And so this resolution, rather than attempt to add more layers of peels to the onion, strips away all the statute which is in conflict currently with the existing articles of the Constitution. So the aspect of the human eyewitness has been brought up. And the reason why that's important is because if there's to be a challenge to the count in the election and somebody would like to take that to court, for instance, 2 or more eyewitnesses are required to establish a fact in law, and the machine precludes that ability for the humans to do that. So the founding generation, they understood law very well, and they understood that 2 or more eyewitnesses are required to establish a fact in law. So they placed the clerk, the moderator, and a select board witnessing with their own eyes the sorting and counting of the ballots. The benefit of that is, like I said, if there's a challenge to the vote, any one of those humans can be placed under penalty of perjury, put on the stand, and asked to testify. And they have the fear of the law in them to know that if they're caught lying, they could spend time in prison. A machine, though it may be able to count and sort as well as a human being, does not have the ability to get on a witness stand and testify to what it has seen, nor is it afraid of spending time in jail. I think that's pretty ludicrous, right? So the other aspect to this is that the legislature is not granted authority anywhere that I can find in Part 2 frame of government to amend or alter a constitutional provision. The only lawful way to amend or alter a constitutional provision is through Part 2, Article 100, at a biennial election where the proposal is made to the people and the majority of the people vote whether they agree or disagree with an alteration to the amendment. As it stands today, Part 2, Article 32, for instance, has never been amended by the people. So all alterations by legislature are unauthorized, null and void. As to the affidavits, that was covered briefly, and the part that I think I would like to fill in there is the very definition of an affidavit as seen in Black's Law Dictionary shows a sworn officer of the court verifying the identity of the voter, and also shows the sworn officer of the court verifying the identity of the person who comes before them. Well, the current situation with affidavits, because I was at that meeting with the Secretary of State, And I posed to him this understanding that the affidavit needs to be conducted in front of a sworn notary of the court. That's the whole point of it, is to verify the identity of the voter. And also the statute calls for them to witness the voter filling out the ballot. And the Secretary of State replied to me, well, the voter can sign on the affidavit themselves, self-certifying that they are who they say they are, and send it in. But that defies the very definition in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, of what an affidavit is. So there's a clear deficiency there. Let's see. What else do I need to speak to? I had wanted to go last so I could kind of tie up any loose ends, but does anybody have any questions? Okay, well,
I don't know.
I'll speak to convenience. Like as Andrew Noyes said, my son, I'm very proud of him. As he so aptly stated, convenience cannot be a consideration when each one of you already promised in advance by way of oath. Part 2, Article 84 says you accepted the trust. And the New Hampshire Constitution is a trust indenture. We are the grantors, you are the trustees. You already promised us that you would fulfill the contractual terms. I'm not sure if you're all aware that it's an actual contract. Like in Vermont, Part 1, Article 6 actually says all government agents are the people's trustees and accountable to them in a legal way. So you already promised to us contractually that you would fulfill the exact terms of the contract. Now, in an express trust contract, only what is expressly written is authorized or granted authority. And what is not as expressly written is not authorized. For example, let's say I have a trust fund and I invite you to be one of my trustees to identify cash flowing real estate properties, and I offer you $2,000 compensation for each one you find, and you agree to be one of my trustees and you come into contract with me. One day a month down the road, we're having coffee and you show up in a Ferrari and I say, that's a beautiful car, where'd you get the money? And you say, well, I bought it with the trust fund money, helps me get to the real estate properties to buy them quicker for you. And I say, well, where does it say in the trust that you could do that? And you said, if you replied to me, it doesn't say I couldn't do it. I think you can see we'd have a problem, and that in court of law, you would be held responsible for your fiduciary duty. Well, in New Hampshire Constitution Part 232, it shows 3 human beings sorting and counting the votes. And it doesn't say anywhere in there that you can add in a monkey counting them on the moon. You can no more add a monkey counting them on the moon than you can add a machine. You don't have that authority. So all along, this whole time, the machines have been unauthorized. You promised us that you would do it exactly the way it says in Part 2, Article 32. And this resolution would strip away those statutes which you were unauthorized to make, bring us back to the original operating principle where we would have our eyewitnesses if we need them to testify in court to any miscount or tomfoolery. And as far as the convenience factor, as Representative McCarter has said, that's actually the job of the legislature, is to figure out that type of detail. And you can write statute for how many polling stations you would be. I mean, a very practical solution would be to double the amount of polling stations and have enough workers in there to count the votes. So you could take that 18,000, however many votes are counted in each one, you could take that down. That's just a practical, I'm not saying that is the solution, but I think it's just to show that it'd be pretty easy to probably come up with a solution. But once again, convenience can never be used as an excuse to not follow the law that you already promised to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're proud of your son as well.